Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on high pH winemaking. I hope you are all doing well. You all had a good cup of coffee this morning, and you are ready to talk about the challenges and the solution associated with high pH winemaking. My name is Églantine Chauffour. I'm the winemaking product manager at Bucher, Vaslin, North America, representing lamothe-abiet in North America, and I will be your speaker today. So before we dive in the topic of high pH winemaking, I would like to introduce you the two partners for this webinar. We have Bucher Vaslin, designer, manufacturer, and seller of material for grape and wine processing since 1856. So quite a bit of experience all around the world in all equipment, processing equipment for winemaking. And then we have lamothe-abiet, winemaking product brand, founded in Bordeaux in 1878. About 141 years of expertise in winemaking consulting, mainly focused in Europe, but now we are making it available for you in North America. As Bucher Vaslin in North America is expanding their portfolio and their offering to have a complete offers for winemaker, we also have, in addition to Bucher Vaslin equipment and lamothe-abiet winemaking product, we have Costral bottling lines and Caso wine pumps. You can find all the information on Bucher Vaslin North America on our website, bvnorthamerica.com, and this will give you everything you need. So now let's talk about high pH winemaking, which processing wine from high pH fruit can create potential difficulties and challenges for winemakers. So winemakers must think ahead and plan accordingly. So it happens that high pH, pH is critical. It plays a critical role in many aspects of winemaking, especially stability. So we are talking mainly about microbial stability, oxidative stability, but also high pH will induce wine that are highly protein unstable, and we have a problem with color stability too. So today we are going to focus on the microbial stability, the oxidative stability, and we will finish by talking a little bit about the balance of the mouthfeel, because high pH wines are different, and we have to look at it in a different angle to balance this this sensation. Okay, so to understand how we can limit and prevent further increase of the pH, it's important to understand which parameters are impacting pH. So we know that the fruit composition is going to be impacting mainly about the pH. By the varieties, the rootstock, the maturity of the fruit, the viticultural practices, the soil moisture, the soil mineral composition, all these parameters are going to define the fruit composition. Then once we have this fruit with high pH, in winemaking, we can also impact this pH and make it lower or actually higher. So the pressing cycles and the skin contact that we are choosing is going to impact the pH of the wine. The acid adjustment can allow you to decrease a little bit your pH. Acid precipitation will change your pH, and then malolactic fermentation. If you do a malolactic fermentation, your pH is decreasing. So sometimes it could be strategic to not do malolactic fermentation. On whites, that's a common practice. On reds, that's not really a common practice, but as climate is changing, our pH is becoming higher. Maybe we should start to think a little bit outside of the box and outside of the tradition, and potentially question the malolactic fermentation even on red wines. Okay, so since today we are going to focus on the winemaking aspect and how to deal with high pH wine, and we are going to talk about how we can be vigilant about all the downsides of high pH wine. First thing I want to talk about is how can we prevent further increase of the pH in winemaking to limit excessive pH. So we're going to talk about acid adjustment, limiting the potassium extraction, maybe other alternatives to tartaric precipitation, so for the cold stabilization could be an option, and ion exchange can also be a good tool to have. Then we will talk about how to live with it, because even if we manage to reduce the increase of pH, we are still dealing with high pH grapes. So we will have to be extra vigilant of the microbial risk and the oxidative risk. So To limit the extraction of potassium, potassium is present between the skin and the pulp. So potassium is extracted as soon as we have skin contact and when we do pressing. When we extract potassium, this is directly linked to an increase in pH. So we want to limit this extraction. So limiting the skin contact can be a good option. And there is, for example, when you do have a long transportation from when you pick to when you arrive, pick the fruit to when you arrive in the winery, the bin in which you receive your fruit, usually these fruits are floating in the juice, and here there is an extraction that is not always wanted. So now it exists some compartmented bins that help you to separate the fruit and the juice, so your fruit are not macerating into your juice, so you have less extraction during the transportation. You control much more this. For more information on this compartmented bin, please go on our website that you have the link here below, the bvnorthamerica.com/reception. The other thing to control potassium extraction is going to be about pressing. So every time you do, you go high in pressure and you do rotation, you're increasing the extraction of potassium. So that's, once you know this, you know that basically the solution is to go much with a gentle type of cycle, go slowly up in pressure with limited rotations. That's going to be the solution to extract less potassium, but not only, to also extract less solid, which means less oxidative enzymes, okay, and have less oxygen presence also. So it's actually, you have everything to win to have a gentle pressing with limited rotation. Then what you have to lose is that usually the yield and the time of the pressing becomes, the yield becomes low and the time becomes very long. So to know when to separate your fraction and just push a little bit stronger on the yield, we have now intelligent program included in our presses that helps you to manage to manage your pressing, basically, to be more qualitative. So it's called the organ program, and this is an algorithm that is based on grape type, dryness desired, length of the pressing, and then this is all adjusted in real time regarding the flow rates of the press. We can also install a conductivity meter in line and separate the press fraction with conductivity. Conductivity is directly related to pH and potassium. So that's a tool that are important to know, and that tool can really help you to manage your pressing cycle to limit the potassium extraction. If you need more information on this, you can go on our website, or you can send me an email as well. I will be happy to send you all the information you need. So the next step is going to be acid adjustment. So acid adjustment is not always possible to reduce pH. This really depends on the wine. So the important thing is to make the difference between pH and TA. So pH is going to be the concentration of free hydrogen in solution, while TA is a concentration of the total amount of hydrogen ion. So in between these two, there is a dissociation of the acids in solution that will play, and each wine is or juice are going to be different. So it's very hard to really have a correct calculation on how much acid to add to reach a pH desired. So this is called the buffer capacity of the juice or the wine, and it will impact strongly how an acid addition impacts the pH. So please do trials when you do acid addition. It's important to taste and also to measure the pH, so to see how the wine or the juice can react. As very rough guideline, we usually say that 1 gram per liter of tartaric acid can reduce the pH of 0.1. So that's a very rough guideline. And then do the acid addition as soon as possible. So we are integrating the acid much better, but also you are helping to stabilize your wine much sooner. The point is that in case of high pH and high TA, acid additions are not a solution. They are actually not even an option for you, because this high pH is completely related to potassium. So extremely important to reduce the amount of potassium we are extracting. Okay, the last step that can impact the last step in winemaking that can impact the acidity or the pH of the wine is gonna be the cold stabilization or potassium bitartrate crystal precipitation. So we have to stabilize wines towards tartrate precipitation. It happens that traditionally we are doing this with cold and letting it precipitate. But if you look at the diagram of the distribution, the tartrate distribution diagram here, you can see that if we are in low pH, that's fine. We are precipitating tartrate, so we decrease our TA and we decrease our pH. If we are in high pH situation, as we're talking today, high means higher than 3.65 in this situation, precipitating potassium bitartrate will decrease your TA but increase your pH. So this will create a further increase in pH. So basically at high pH, precipitation of potassium bitartrate are increasing more the pH. So we kind of have to think about alternatives to stabilize the wine. Here are some options to stabilize the wine. So you can use cold and contact sealing, but we say this is not an option in high pH. So you can think about electrodialysis. That actually will help you to reduce your pH a good 0.3 or 0.4 sometimes. So this can be a very clever tool to use, but also you can use some alternatives that will inhibit the precipitation, so you maintain everything you have in the wine, all the acid you have in the wine. And in this case, you can use manoprotein. Lamothe-abiet manoprotein for this application is called STAB-K. Arabic gum, we have the gum LA, and CMC, we have the Vinoprotect. So if you want more information on how to use alternative to cold to stabilize for tartrate, please send me an email. I will be very happy to help you on this. But before using any alternative, we require some requirements associated to this alternative, application of this alternative. So you need some analysis. And so please give me a call or give me an email, send me an email, and I will be happy to help you on this. Okay, so these are the different tips that we can have in like key steps of winemaking that will help you to prevent further increase of pH in winemaking. Then even if we limit more increase of pH, we are still dealing with high pH wine. So let's talk about this and let's see how we can deal with it and control the process. So we're going to start with microbial management. Microbial management, so in addition to have a more comfortable environment at high pH, microbes are very comfortable. As soon as we are higher than 3.6, we consider the environment much more unstable, microbiologically speaking, because they are very comfortable. But in addition to this, sulfur, the most common antimicrobial agent, is actually not effective. So you can see here, so sulfur in this table has 3 different actions: antimicrobial, antioxidant, antioxidasic. And in winemaking, sulfur has different form. We can have the bonded part. The bonded part is completely useless. It's basically doing nothing. And the free sulfur, only the molecular sulfur, is going to have an antimicrobial action. We consider molecular sulfur higher than 0.8 ppm to be to have an antimicrobial action. Okay, and it happened that, so if we look at the bond sulfur can bond strongly with acetaldehyde, which is produced by microbes. So we are having a snowball effect. If you don't protect from microbial contamination, they are actually going to produce molecules that combine sulfur, and so your sulfur is going to be even less efficient. And then the weak bonds are actually with a lot of other compounds, anthocyanin, sugar, diacetyl, pyruvic acid. A lot of them are produced by microbes as well. If we look at the free sulfur, and the molecular sulfur depends on pH. As you can see the diagram here, you can see how much free sulfur is required to reach 0.6 in the blue line and 0.8 in the pink line, depending the pH, but this goes exponential. So if we are talking about higher than 3.6, so for example, let's take 3.8, as you can see in this table, with a 3.8 pH, we would need 60 milligram per liter of free sulfur to have 0.6 milligram per liter of molecular sulfur, which is not even enough to control all the microbes, and it starts to be very high. If we want to control everything, we are talking about 0.8 molecular sulfur, so 80 free sulfur, which becomes a number very, very high that as a webinar, I can't really see your face, but usually if I do this in seminar, I can see that when I say the number 80, the people look at me with big eyes saying like, I'm not gonna age my wine with 80 milligram per liter of free sulfur. So it's not something really that we can consider. So basically in high pH, we have microbial stability must be gained in a different way than sulfur because sulfur is not very active. Okay, so what are the other ways? So let's talk about the other way available. The first one is going to be to work with quality grapes. So sorting is an option and is important to do a good sorting to remove any grapes that can be contaminated or open. So like this, you reduce the amount of microbes that are entering in your cellar. Bucher Vaslin has many options of sorting available from vibrating manual or mechanical sorting table to optical sorting with extreme accuracy. And we have different options depending the speed and the amount of tonnage you want to process per day. So for this, please go on our website, bvnorthamerica.com/reception. You will see different videos, but you can also send me an email and I will be happy to help you on this and give you more information. The second point is to control the microbes. So the ones that are entering in your cellar, you need to control them. The different antimicrobial agents that exist, sulfur, but we saw it's not very efficient. Chitosan, lysozyme, this works very good, but we will talk about it more for aging. Then on grapes, there is the approach of bioprotection. So bioprotection is a natural way to inhibit unwanted microbes, to inhibit their development. So we are managing the microbial life by mastering the colonization. So basically, this is a very ancestral method that exists to manage microbes, is that we are introducing a positive microbe into the juice or on the grapes that we know is gonna inhibit the development of other microbes, so it's gonna really colonize the environment and have no negative effect on your wine. So that's a very natural approach, I would say. In winemaking, lamothe-abiet works strongly on this approach and came out with Excellence Bio Nature, which is a non-Saccharomyces yeast. It's a Mechnicovia pulcherrima. This yeast has been selected to answer some criteria. So this yeast is not having fermentation ability. So this yeast cannot ferment, doesn't produce CO2, doesn't consume sugar, doesn't consume nitrogen either. So your YAN stay as it was. There is no inhibition of Saccharomyces. So you can use Excellence Bio Nature with wild fermentation, no problem at all. And you can also inoculate with your Saccharomyces, you will not have any issue. This Bio Nature is going to have a strong dominance in colonization. So it's staying there, it's producing pulcherrimine, which is a toxin for the other non-Saccharomyces and bacteria. So we are inhibiting the development of all the other non-Saccharomyces or bacteria that could produce VA, basically. In addition to this, there is a strong beta-glucosidase activity to Excellence Bio Nature, so you have a good aromatic impact, which is the revelation of some varietal characteristic, no flavor production, and it resists to difficult condition, except alcohol. As soon as there is a fermentation going on, as soon as there is about 3% alcohol, Excellence Bio Nature is gonna die. We produce it in an organic way, so it's organic certified and non-allergenic product. How to apply it? As early as possible. So if you have any transportation, you can put it in the harvest bin. Otherwise, after crush or tank filling or even pressing, again, it doesn't produce any CO2. So there is no problem using it in white and rosé. You still can settle your juice with no problem. You sprinkle it on the top of the grapes. And if you want to rehydrate it, it's going to be a 25 degrees Celsius chlorine-free water. Strong resistance, as I was telling you, and then you can, the dosage that we're talking about is 5 to 10 grams per hecto or 30 to 50 grams per ton. If you want more information of Excellence Bio Nature, you can go on our website, but also you can watch a webinar that we made dedicated on microbial control. So you go to bvnorthamerica.com/webinars and you will find all the information you need. You can also contact me anytime. If we look at some result of trials, you can see that if we compare sulfur and no sulfur plus Bio Nature, so obviously we have less sulfur, 3 in total, but we have less acetaldehyde produced by Bio Nature, which explains that we have less combining power of the wine at the end. So if we add sulfur, it's going to be much easier. So this number TL35 is going to be the quantity of sulfur we need to add to the wine to obtain 35 milligrams per liter of free. So we produce less acetaldehyde and less molecule combining sulfur. Okay, these are different results of tasting. So then the next step is, since we are controlling the microbes on grapes now, about fermentation. So very important to consider native versus inoculation. If we are talking about high pH winemaking, we know there is more risk. Maybe that's not the lot where you want to do native, just because you're not having fully control on it, and you take more risk to have a stack fermentation, which would be a disaster, because again, don't forget that bacteria are very happy in high pH. Then if you want to ensure a complete and healthy fermentation, you have to have a good yeast nutrition, especially that usually high pH is associated with high sugar content, so high alcohol. So there is more stress involved for the yeast, so you need a very good nutrition. I will do next webinar will be on yeast nutrition, so I highly recommend you to come and connect to this one too. Limit the yeast stress, so with the nutrition, temperature, turbidity, survival factor, and oxygen. And then observe your kinetic. Try to be preventive, try to be proactive. You look at your kinetics. As soon as you see a slowdown, it means that the yeast is struggling. Give her some food, or give her some survival factor, or just don't take the risk and inoculate with a strong yeast. Okay. Next question is going to be about the malolactic fermentation. So we are talking about, we are comparing here wild malolactic fermentation versus inoculation. High pH wine, lactobacillus is very, very happy and is usually the one that take on. She's taking on while alcoholic fermentation is going on too. And we end up very often with wine that smells like this. So wines that can smell like cheese, mousy, some wines that are horsey, sweat horse, vinegar, biogenic amines are produced as well, so stagnant water, algae, aquarium, the smell of the fish and the food for the fish, you know, the fish flakes. So all these nice smells that are very hard to remove from your wine. You really don't want this to happen. So I'm actually having a very strong opinion on wild malolactic fermentation, and very often you end up with higher biogenic amines and all these off aromas that are a struggle to remove. So don't play too much with wild malolactic fermentation, because if you do inoculate, you're having a better control of your microflora balance. You limit the risk of contamination, you secure your malolactic, you don't have biogenic amine production, you don't have so much of flavor production, and you reduce the amount of SO2 combining molecules, which is very important because you want to have your sulfur for aging that is going to be active, at least for antioxidant protection. Okay, so now if we talk about microbial control during aging, we are going to talk about different antimicrobial agents. So sulfur, but as I just told you, sulfur is not really the best one in high pH wine. So you can use it as antioxidant, but as antimicrobial, it's going to be a way too high amount of sulfur that you will need. Lysozyme is very efficient against lactic acid bacteria, so Lactobacillus, Pediococcus, and Ococcus, but not really against yeast. So you're not going to protect from Brettanomyces with lysozyme. Ketosane has a much wider spectrum. So ketosane will work against Brettanomyces, lactic acid bacteria, so Lactobacillus, Pediococcus, Enococcus, but also some Acetobacter and non-Saccharomyces yeast. Filtration is always a good option, but when we are getting closer to bottling, DMDC or Velcorin is going to be an agent that you would use pre-bottling to control the yeast populations, not so much about the bacteria. And then obviously the first thing to do and the best way to control microbes in any cellar, and this is not only for high pH winemaking, is going to be sanitation. Okay, sanitation is very important. So if we talk a little bit more about ketosane, ketosane is a deacetylation of ketene, which is a polysaccharide derived from Aspergillus niger. It's a molecule that is positively charged, and by magnet attraction, it's going to attract all the other microbes that have negatively charged cell walls. So as you see in this picture, they attract each other, it becomes like a magnet, and then the ketosane is going to alter the cell walls of the cells, or the cell walls of the microbe, sorry, and this is going to induce the death of the microbe. So two things happen, basically. Ketosane is not soluble, so it acts as a fining agent, so it's precipitating the cells out of the wine, and it's going to kill them in it as well. So lamothe-abiet product, ketosane is a pure ketosane, and it's called KILLBRETT. Just don't forget that KILLBRETT doesn't kill only Brettanomyces, but it's killing also Lactobacillus, Pediococcus, Enococcus, and some Acetobacter and film yeast or film bacteria. How do we use it? So we use it to control malolactic. We use it to remove sporage microbe, to prevent sporage microbes. If it's a prevention, we are talking about very low dosage, 2 grams per hecto. You'll do your treatment, you let it go, you just have to mix very well the product into the wine. If we are talking about removing sporage microbes, we are talking about 4 to 6 grams per hectoliter treatment. You have to mix it very well, you let it settle, and you have to rack it from the lees, rack the wine from the lees, clean your barrel, and then you can go back. Okay, if you need more information on this product, feel free to contact me. We have everything in stock. So we have everything in California, but also I can send you all the information you need. So in conclusion, for the antimicrobial aspect, so here you have the list of the different agents you can use at different steps of the process. But basically in high pH wine, your first column here, sulfur temperature is not really an option. So at harvest and crush, we want to use excellence bio nature. And then during malolactic fermentation, barrel aging, pre-bottling, we are more looking at lysozyme or KILLBRETT, and filtration when we are talking to pre-bottling. Okay? So another risk that becomes dominant when dealing with high pH wine is actually oxidation. Have you ever realized that high pH wines brown faster? Yeah. It's yeah. So anyway, many studies are showing that high pH wine have lower resistance to oxidation and age faster. So is this a problem? No. Is this a challenge? Yes. So we are going to need to think about increasing the aging potential, elongate the wine life, and also maybe we can think about releasing the wine sooner on the market. Okay, when we're talking about high pH wine. So the oxidations that happen in winemaking, and this is not only about high pH, but for everything, it happens that in high pH, everything goes faster. We have enzymatic reactions that can happen. This is mainly on juice, and we are having polyphenol oxidase or lacase in presence of oxygen and phenols are producing quinone. Chemical reactions, so this is mainly during aging, and this goes faster when we are talking about high pH wine. And we are having a phenol, an oxygen that is activated via a redox reaction with usually a metal, so iron or copper, is activated into a radical and it's producing a quinone. So here we have the same molecule from enzymatic and chemical. Quinones are the base of all the oxidation reaction. Then in terms of chemical reactions, we also have the phenton reaction, which is the production of H2O2, which is going to be activated in a radical, again with a redox reaction, iron or copper. and then this radical is usually oxidizing ethanol into acetaldehyde. And then we have the microbial oxidation, but we already talked about microbes previously. So if we look at basically, mainly if we focus on the quinone and what the quinone does, so enzymatic or chemical, we are producing a quinone. This quinone is going to first react with glutathione, which is naturally present in juice, in grapes, in wine. This glutathione acts as a trap. So the glutathione is going to trap the quinone, make this GRP molecule, glutathione grape reaction product. And with this molecule, we trap the quinone, we stop the reaction of oxidation. The other thing is the quinone can react with polyphenols. So this is creating browning. Usually we have polymerization that makes the polyphenol getting brown, and we lose them also, so we lose color. It's like that's the classic aging process in the wine. And then the quinone can react also with aromas, so we lose freshness, we lose all the nice fruity varietal aromas, and we arrive more on the oxidation side. So how to treat, how to protect, and how to increase the aging potential of the wine? The first thing is obviously limit the presence of oxygen. So in grapes, it's very important to try to use inert gas and protect as much as you can, but also during aging, it's going to be very important to reduce the amount of dissolved oxygen in the wine. You can use fining agent and reduce the amount of precursors in the wine. This is mainly for rosé and white. You can use some tannins or sulfur to inhibit the lacase and polyphenol oxidase action, and then you will need fining agents to remove iron and copper. And then you can trap the quinone by enhancing the amount of glutathione in your wine. You can work also on reacting with radicals before the radicals react with the phenol or ethanol. Okay, so if we look a little bit more in detail in all these points, so limiting the oxygen contact, you can use the inert gas as soon as you start to process. Basically, as soon as your grapes start to be open and in contact with juice, you release the enzyme, you release the phenol, and then everything can get oxidized. Pressing is usually the most critical step for oxidation. So you want to reduce the rotation, you want to separate your press fraction, and you want to protect from oxidation, which Bucher Vaslin developed a pressing system, which is called Bucher Inertis, which is completely free of oxygen contact. So we are pressing completely inert with under nitrogen, with a full closed system of a bag related to the press. So you can go on our website, there is some videos, there is many scientific studies that has been done on this process, and that's very, very impressive how we can protect the potential of the juice. As you can see in this picture, the picture shows you just the color, but you can imagine the aromas associated with it. This is at the end of the press when we are having a normal press fraction. This is how your juice normally looks like when it's contact with oxygen. This is how the juice is going to look like when it's not in contact with oxygen and you press with an inertis press. So we have a full webinar also that has been made on oxidation protection. So please feel free to watch our webinar on our website and go on our website in the press section. You will have all the information you need. The second point is to inhibit oxidase activity. So inhibit the lacase and PPO. And for this, we can use sulfur or tannins. Lamothe-abiet has a very strong tannin. It's actually the best tannin on the market for inhibition of lacase and PPO. It is a pure pro-anthocyanidinic tannin. It has a strong affinity with protein, so it removes the oxidase, but it also improves clarification. It is having an action of radical scavenger, and it helps color stabilization. We use it at harvest usually from 180 to 250 grams per ton. Here is a picture that shows you how the color can be much improved. It's actually pretty impressive where you have a control that is very poor in color. That's a red wine, but the control is very poor in color and kind of cloudy as well. As soon as we add the tannin, we use it as a sacrificial tannin. So the protannin R react with the protein, react with the radicals, and then this one is reacting, saving your own tannins from your grapes. So, and then we can stabilize them. And if you look at here, there is many studies that show how we can improve and increase the amount of anthocyanin in the juice, and also the color intensity by using protannin R at reception. Next step is to reduce the precursors of oxidation. So how do we do this? We limit the mashing, we limit the juice maceration during transport, so use a compartmented bin can be an option, but also the use of sulfur is going to increase the extraction of the phenol, so maybe we want to limit the use of sulfur on grapes. You want to separate your press fraction, so that's to not have too much phenols, but also you can separate your press fraction to not have too much potassium and not too much enzymes. Okay, so juice clarification is very important, fast and clean, that's the best way. So you want to use clarification enzymes, so pectinase. We have enzyme CLAR that works very good for this application. And then you need, so by doing this, you remove all the oxidative enzyme, you let them in the lees, so that's they are usually attached to solid, so that's a very important step. And then you can think about removing the oxidable and oxidized polyphenol with fining. Doing a fining early in the process will be very beneficial and will not have a negative impact on the aromas. Doing fining on the wine, in this case, you will reduce the amount of aromas that you have in the wine. So if you want to do fining, do it as early as possible. Next step is to build up the wine resistance. So your wine resistance is going to build up with addition of glutathione. We saw how glutathione reacts with the quinone and act as a trap. So you want to preserve your own glutathione by protecting from oxygen and limiting all these reactions. But also you can enhance the glutathione content of your juice by using OPTITHIOL, which is a yeast derivative that is rich in glutathione, in sulfur peptide, so cysteine and glutathione. We use it usually pre-inoculation, 15 to 30 grams per hectoliters. Here you can see a result of when we use OPTITHIOL, we increase the production of thiol, plus we are actually increasing the oxidation resistance of the wine. So you see even 9 months after, the OPTITHIOL has much more aromas than the control. During fermentation, we don't really have to worry about oxygen. That's the only time that oxygen is actually beneficial. We want oxygen. The yeast needs oxygen. The yeast are needing oxygen to produce sterol and unsaturated fatty acids, which are essential component of the membrane. This will help the yeast to be more resistant. It will help the yeast to be stronger and to finish the fermentation healthier. But also, oxygen will help you improving your color stabilization. If you do have the right tannin associated to it, oxygen is going to help you to create this anthocyanin tannin molecule via ethanol bridge, which is the most stable molecule you can have in terms of color. So lamothe-abiet has developed soft tan V for vinification. Soft tan V is our best tannins that we use like just one day after reception to stabilize color. So if you look at this graph here, you can see we are looking at how much color intensity dropped from after malolactic and 6 months after. So this gives us an idea of the color stability. You can see the control lost almost 40% of the color, while when we are talking about soft tan V, we are about 18% of the color loss. So we saved a lot of color. This is an impressive tannin that works very, very good. You have all the information of this tannin on our website, and also please send me an email and I will be happy to give you more information. We will do another webinar focused on color stability where we will develop more on this tannin. So I'm not going to go through it again, but this is just to give you an idea, again, and a good vision of what happened during the chemical reactions, oxidation reactions during aging. So it's always the same reactions. And just as we just talked about, we want to reduce the amount of dissolved oxygen. That's going to be the most important. How do we do this? This is really good cellar practices, so working with good equipment, good pumps, and having well-trained cellar hands. You also can work on scavenging the radicals, so this is going to help you having a better potential of aging. You can use free sulfur, you can use grape tannins, which are vinitan advanced. You can use oak tannins, and toasted oak tannins are great to react with radicals, so tannescence volume. And then some aging on fine lees, the lees are consuming the dissolved oxygen, which allows you to not have radicals. And then the next step is just, again, to increase your potential of aging by increasing your glutathione content. And Aroma Protect is our yeast derivative developed for aging part, and it is rich in glutathione and cysteine. So limiting dissolved oxygen, cellar practices, I told you the first step is to measure DO, and then make sure you work with very good equipment, good pumps, good cellar equipment. We have KILLBRETT wine pumps, which are the best in terms of dissolved oxygen, to limit the dissolved oxygen. They are very gentle, and they allow you to work in a very high quality environment. So for more information, go on our website, bvnorthamerica.com/KILLBRETT. But also working with sparging nitrogen is a very important step that can help you a lot to limit the pickup of oxygen. Limit headspace, just make sure you gas with CO2 or argon for headspace, control your topping schedule. And then if you look at this table here, this is showing you how much, in general, how much dissolved oxygen we dissolve by action in the cellar. The biggest impact is a cold stabilization. So very often that's where we get a big shot of oxygen to the wine. The wine is putting it cold, dissolve a lot of oxygen, you pump it cold, and then you filter cold, and then you're gonna warm it up, and the wine is gonna consume everything, and you get oxidized suddenly. So thinking about alternative to cold stabilization is, this is another reason to think about alternative to cold stabilization. In addition to not increasing the pH, as we talked before, also you are protecting your wine from more dissolved oxygen. So think about monoprotein, STAB-K, think about Arabic gum, gum LA, think about CMC, Vino Protect, but before using them, check with us and we will help you. You have to do some analysis, you have to understand how unstable is your wine. You can add the product and test again so you're sure it's gonna work. Okay, then we arrive at bottling. And at bottling, oxygen pickup is extremely it's an extremely important issue that influences wine stability, quality, and longevity. It's oxygen at this step acts as like a lightning. It's gonna it could completely destroy the wine and you can do nothing about it. So you're gonna lose free sulfur, you're gonna end up with browning, pinking, loss of aroma, freshness, balance, and in the worst case, you can have microbial development. So it's important to measure DO. You should measure DO before, during, and after bottling. You want to try to be as low as possible, but for sure below 0.3 ppm. Then just before bottling, air should be eliminated in all hoses, filter housing, pumps, fill bowls, by using displacement gas such as nitrogen. So make sure you use nitrogen on everything. You want to blanket your feed tanks with CO2 or argon, and you want to flush your bottles with displacement gas as well. Then when you arrive to the closure choice, that's up to you, but there is some closure that allows you to completely control how much oxygen is going to go through. And so this, we want to decide is depending your winemaking style, how long you're going to age your wine, and also just how you want the wine to be. But just think that high pH wine don't age so good and they age very fast. So releasing them sooner on the market can be a very good strategy. Last but not least, how the high pH impact the wine mouthfeel. I'm gonna go very fast on this one because basically high pH are usually perceived are very viscous, very heavy, and very smooth, which can be very good, but needs to be balanced. If you look at this triangle of the wine balance here, so we are increasing the purple triangle of viscosity, so you don't really want to play with sugar or sweetness or, you know, any like Arabic gum or polysaccharide with high pH wine, because they are going to be perceived as too heavy. The thing that can balance high pH wine could be acidity, but if you can't add acid because of the stability, phenolic compounds is usually the best way. So to balance high pH, viscous and heavy wine, think about a higher tannin content and lower sweetness. So conclusion of this webinar, dealing with high pH wines is completely a different mindset. So you basically are not dealing with new problems. They are the same challenge than in any winemaking. They are just more present and higher risk. So there is one important point is that you want to prevent the limit increase, you want to prevent the further increase of pH. And for this, you can think acid adjustment, but mainly you want to limit potassium extraction when you handle your grapes, and you want to think about an alternative to cold for potassium bitartrate stabilization. Okay. Then in terms of microbial stability, sanitation is the most important thing, and then you have to think about alternative to sulfur, because sulfur doesn't really work in high pH wine. So sorting, BioNature, KILLBRETT are very good options. Also about controlling oxidation, you have to limit oxygen contact. So you have to limit dissolved oxygen, and this will be made by using inert gas and using great, good cellar practices and equipment. But also you can use protannin R as antioxidasic, antioxidant agent on grapes. And then you want to reinforce antioxidant potential of the wine with OPTITHIOL and aroma protect. Then about the mouthfeel, think about tannins, because they can be very helpful to balance the mouthfeel. So thank you very much for your attention. You can view this webinar on our YouTube channel, but you can also view the previous webinar on our YouTube channel. Here are the link of our website and my email address. Feel free to contact me for any question you have. And now I'm gonna do the question and answer portion. Thank you very much for your attention.